بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I start with the name of Allah, seeking the reward from Allah and from Allah alone. I thank and praise Allah for the countless endowments, the blessings that Allah has given without Allah being obligated to give anything. And humbly I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we ask Allah to protect the nation of Muhammad from what it is that he feared for his nation. Inshallah, this afternoon we will continue reviewing from the Lucid Word the section on pilgrimage. And we began the last time we were together. We began speaking about the pilgrimage. And we said that Hajj and Umrah are obligatory once during the lifetime for the free person, the free Muslim. When he is one that he possesses the means. And this includes the funds, the money that he needs to transport himself to Mecca and back home. So if this money, he has this, and in excess of this, along with what he needs to get himself from Mecca back home to where his home is, in excess of that, he has what he needs to cover his debts. And he had appropriate lodging. Bismillah, Bismillah. Is that better? That's better? Okay. What was the last thing you heard? I'll go back. Okay. So we were talking about the Hajj and who it is that is obligated to perform the Hajj. And we mentioned that it is the one who has the means, who has the way to perform the Hajj. Meaning, he has for example, the money that he needs to get himself from his home to Mecca. And then back to his home. And along with that, he had what he needed to cover his debts. Even if those debts that he had were deferred debts meaning nobody was on his back saying you have to pay it right away, but he had time to pay those debts. Because those debts, those valid debts, they are an obligation on a person. If somebody owes someone else money validly, he has to pay that person back, and it's better for him to pay what he owes quickly. And it is sinful for him to have the means to pay those debts and leave that out, thus dying with those debts. So he wouldn't take from this money that is obliged upon him, money that he has to pay back. He wouldn't take from that by him performing the Hajj and leaving himself unable to pay that debt. And along with that, he has appropriate lodging. What's appropriate lodging for one would be different than appropriate lodging for someone else. There are places where if one had a hut made of straw, say a good situation for him that is appropriate, he has what he needs. But there are other places, the same house, the same hut made from the same straw would not be appropriate lodging. And speaking of the appropriate lodging, it's not an obligation that one would own the lodgings. So even if he rented it, and it's appropriate, you can check that box for the appropriate lodging. And appropriate clothing. You can wear appropriate clothing where he's at. We have brothers and sisters that come and visit us right in Miami. That's in our same country. You can get there, take maybe 1-2 roads, you can get there. It's a trip. But they might come here in the wintertime and they don't even own a coat. Because we're there, right? They would have appropriate clothing even if they didn't have the winter gear. But someone here, if they didn't have that, they don't have appropriate clothing. And this one that's obligated, his assets, what he has, it has to be enough that he can provide for those that he's obligated to care for. Like his wife, his children, his parents if they were poor. From the beginning, from the time that he left going to Mecca, until the time that he came back home. So he has all of that. He has a way that he can get there safely. This one, the Hajj is an obligation upon him. And we did mention the last time that we were together that this obligation of Hajj, when it becomes an obligation upon him, he has all of these boxes checked that we talked about. He can delay that. So it doesn't mean that as soon as the Hajj season comes, he has to go. It's okay, he can delay that. But he has to perform this Hajj before his death. And which one of us know how many more Hajj seasons we will see? And then we talked about the integrals of pilgrimage, and we said that they are 6. And we said the first is the ihram. That's his intention. And now he's in a state of ihram for the Hajj. And the place of the intention is the heart. The second is that he would stay in Arafat. Arafat is a location, it's a place. And he has to be there sometime between the sun's declination westward. And when you hear that, the sun's declination westward, doesn't that make you think about Dhuhr time? Yes. So, from the Dhuhr times, the sun's between the sun's destination westward on the day of Arafat, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, until the dawn You hear dawn, you think of Fajr, right? So until the Fajr of the 8th day, which is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, he has to be in Arafat during that time, at some point during that time. So he doesn't have to be there all of that time, but at some point during that time, he has to be in Arafat. And we said the third is at Tawaf, going around the Kaaba, starting at the Black Stone and going around 7 times. He gets back to that place, that's 1. Goes around, comes back to that place, that's 2. Goes around, comes back to where the Black Stone is, that's 3, etc. 7 times. The fourth is Asad. It is traversing between the area between the border markers of Al-Safa, the mountain Al-Safa, and the Mount Al-Mawla. And each one of those trips is 1, back, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because he does that 7 times. We mentioned that the 5th is the shaving or trimming of one's hair. And for the men, the shaving is best. The woman, she can trim her hair, cutting the hair, trimming the hair, without going all the way down to the root, which is done with the shaving. And that the 6th integral is to observe the order in most of the integrals that we mentioned. There's different things they have at times. So for example, yes, it's an obligation, the intention would be first. That would be before all the other integrals. And then he would delay his shaving or his trimming until after his stay in Arafat, for example. And this is where we left off the last time. So we'll continue, inshallah. Before we continue, all of that was clear? Salih said, may Allah have mercy upon him, that these integrals are the same integrals of Umrah, with the exception of staying in Arafat. So you know, Arafat has its time. It's from Dhuhr setting in on the 9th until Fajr setting in on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. So it's not an integral for Umrah. Umrah can be done at any time, but Hajj is only done during the Hajj season in the month of Dhul Hijjah. Before the rain. The author says, so consequently it is known that the integrals of Umrah are 5. Ihram, Tawaf, Sa'i, shaving or trimming, and observing the order. Now these integrals, they have requisites and conditions which must be observed for the Hajj or the Umrah to be valid. For instance, the circumambulation, the going around the Kaaba, requires one to move across a specified distance defined by the religious law, beginning at the black stone and ending back at the black stone 7 times. Among its conditions is covering the outer. So when performing the circumambulation, going around the Kaaba, one must cover the outer during this. And they must have purity from both states of ritual impurity, just like is required for the prayer. So one cannot circumambulate, go around the Kaaba for the Hajj or Umrah without this. So they needed to make wudu before making this, then they would do that. They needed a ghusl, they would do that. A woman who was impure because of the menstruation, she is not pure from these states of ritual impurity. And having the Kaaba to one's left during the circumambulation. So while he's going around it, the Kaaba is to his left. Without facing or turning his back to it. So he must walk forward. The author then added a note here. He said, the author said, may Allah raise his rank, the sign is not valid in the new Messiah, which is the new track that goes beyond the side boundaries set by the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam an-Nawawi said in his book, Al-Majmu'ah, in the chapter of Hajj, in his section of describing Hajj and Umrah, it says, this is what it says in his book, quote, subsection, Ash-Shafi'i and the top scholars of his school say it is not permissible to perform sa'i outside of its prescribed area. If a pilgrim walks beyond its boundaries in the Al-Qarin or elsewhere, his sa'i is not valid because the sa'i is tied specifically to a place and is not permissible to perform it elsewhere, as is the rule for tawaf. So, there is in Mecca now something that has been constructed, and they try to push the signs. If you follow the signs, you will be going outside of the original boundaries. And thus, that sa'i will not be validly completed. So it's been described to me that what one would do is best. They're with someone who is knowledgeable in this. That would be a safety for them. And they would know that they can't go the same way they say that the folks go this way to this mountain and back this way to the other one. Rather, they would go the same way. The first route is still valid. So one would go that way and then come back that way. Maybe everybody else is going this way, but you're coming back this way. And you gotta do that 7 times. So you go one way, back twice, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, like that. And since you know the valid times for this side, you can go at maybe a less than prime time. That makes sense. When it's less crowded. After the author completed his discourse about the intervals of Hajj and Umrah, he started talking about the prohibitions of Ihram. He, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, "It is unlawful for the pilgrim who has made the intention of Ihram, whether for Hajj or Umrah, to do 8 matters." So the first prohibition is to wear perfume. So for a male or a female to use the perfume on their clothes or on their body, this is prohibited. And you know what is perfume? It's something that is usually sought by the people for its fragrance, for the way that it smells, like musk, for example. And during if one did wear the perfume, it's sinful for them to do that. And it requires an expiation, a fidya. The second prohibition is for one to anoint his beard or the hair that grows on the head with the oil, the fat, the ghee, the butter, the grease, or melted beeswax. So he can't put that on his face, in his beard, he can't put that in his beard, on their hair, on their head. The author says using such substances for other purposes, like eating them or frying in them, is not prohibited, except if it's the scented type. The third prohibition is to remove or to cut his fingernails or his toenails, or his hair, whether the hair from his head or from elsewhere. Yes. No worries, thank you. The third prohibition is to remove or cut the fingernails or the toenails, or to remove or cut the hair, whether that hair is the hair from his head or the hair from elsewhere, from somewhere else on his body. Like the places that people have other hair on their body, like their legs, for example. And the fourth prohibition is to perform vaginal or anal sexual intercourse, or even foreplay such as the lustful kissing, the looking, and the touching, even if it was with a barrier. So even if the person, they still had their clothes on, but they can't do that touching and feeling and stuff. Or the lustful kissing. Or those looks that they exchange with one another. They leave that out while they are in this state. And the fifth prohibition is to conduct a marriage contract, whether it's for himself or it's for others. Like if one wanted to marry his own daughter, for example, he wouldn't do that while he is in this the state of Ihram. And not just that, if he did it, he can't do it. But if he did it, the contract is invalid. So there would have been no marriage done. The sixth prohibition is to hunt a wild, edible, land animal. The author says, i.e., to acquire it even by purchasing it. We'll check that. We'll check what's meant by that, inshallah. So, to hunt a wild edible land animal. However, what is not included in this, so saying a wild edible land animal, it excludes the inedible animal. It excludes the water animal, like a fish. It excludes a domesticated animal, like the sheep that is owned by someone, a domestic animal. That's clear? Yes. The second prohibition is to anoint one's beard or hair with oil, fat, ghee, butter, grease, or melted beeswax. The seventh prohibition for the person in the state of Ihram is for the man to cover the head with what is normally considered to be a head covering. Like what? Like a palanso. You know what that is. Or like a kufi, for example, yes, okay. Or to wear a garment that envelops all or part of the body by way of seaming. Or by way of felting, or the like. Is that clear? Huh? Oh, okay. So, I'll just read it again, inshallah. Okay. No worries. The seventh prohibition is for the Muslim, the person in the state of Ihram, the man, to cover the head with what is normally considered to be a head covering, like a palanso, or to wear a garment that envelops all or part of the body by way of seaming, felting, or the like. Okay, so it's forbidden for the man that's in ihram to wear clothing that the reason why the clothes stay on him is because of the seams in it, the stitches, like this. These seams here, this is the reason why this is on me. It's because it's stitched together like this, and then you put it on, and it'll stay on you. Alhamdulillah. The eighth prohibition. So what would a person wear if they're not wearing clothes that stay on them by seaming? You said, yes, they put something on that stays on it by maybe being wrapped a certain way. Yeah. The eighth prohibition is for the woman in the state of ihram to cover her face with what is normally considered to be a covering, or for her to wear gloves. So when she's in the state of ihram, it is forbidden for her to cover her face with that which touches her face, like she usually does with the niqab. She can't just do that. Or to wear gloves. Now, if one commits any of these unlawful matters, knowingly, intentionally, and willfully, one has sinned and is required to expiate. Additionally, that's clear? Okay. Additionally, sexual intercourse before the first release from the state of ihram spoils the pilgrimage and enjoin one to immediately make it up and to continue with this spoiled pilgrimage. Moreover, the one who has spoiled their pilgrimage by sexual intercourse proceeds with it and does not interrupt it. Then they make it up the following year. As for invalidating the Umrah by sexual intercourse, then one finishes it. And then they immediately engage in making it up. And we mentioned that according to Imam al-Shafi'i, both Hajj and Umrah are an obligation. So, we said sexual intercourse before the first release from the state of ihram. There's a footnote here. The first release from the state of ihram in Arabic is called tahlu al-awwal. It is achieved by completing two of the following three. The first one is throwing the pebbles at Jamatul Aqaba, Tawaf, along with Sa'i, and shaving or trimming. So he does two of those three, he has untied one of the two knots of Ihram for Hajj. Okay. The author said, requisites of pilgrimage. After the author finished discussing the prohibitions of Ihram, he started talking about the requisites of pilgrimage. In the context of Hajj, requisite refers to whatever is compensated for with slaughter. But leaving it out does not invalidate the Hajj. He, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, it is an obligation on the person aspiring to perform Hajj or Umrah to make the intention of Ihram before crossing the Miqat. The Miqat is the place designated by the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as the place where one establishes the intention of Ihram. So, there are specific places, specific spots. If I'll read this. The author said there are 5 sites, miqats, for establishing this intention, like Dhul Hulayfa. It is considered the miqat for the people of Al-Madinah and those traveling by that route. So, there are different places that the Muslims come to Mecca by. So depending on which way the person is coming to Mecca, there are certain spots. These are called al-miqat, the miqats. And the person has to have that intention for ihram. They put themselves in the state of ihram by that point. And at these points is where it's it's best to have it, but he has to have it by that point. So he made his intention all the way while he was still in Philadelphia, and he's made his intention to put himself in the state of ihram. All right, so be it. So that's a long time. For example, he wouldn't be able to have the sexual intercourse or different things, but he could do that. That would be valid. But he has to, before he's at these miqats, he has to make this intention there. It is a requisite in Hajj, but not in Umrah, for the pilgrim to stay at night in the area of Muzdalifah. And when we say stay at night, it doesn't mean he has to sleep there, spend the whole night there, but to be present there after midnight, or even if it was for just one moment. Now this ruling is according to one saying of Imam Ash-Shafi'i. It is also a requisite to stay at night in Mina. And again, that means to be present there during most of the 3 nights of Tashriq. If he did not leave Mina before the sunset of the 2nd Tashriq day. But if he left before that, he is permitted to skip staying for the 3rd night. How merciful is Allah? How easy is our Sharia from the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that was clear? And this ruling is also according to one saying of Imam Ash-Shafi'i. There's also a saying that neither staying in Muzdalifah nor Mina is an obligation. Rather, they are recommended. So, leaving out either of them does not make one sinful, nor does it require one to slaughter a sheep or a goat. Inshallah, we'll do one more. It is a requisite to throw 7 pebbles at Jamatul Aqaba on the day of Nahr, and its time starts after midnight and extends until the last day of Tashriq. So the day of Nahr is the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah. This day, as you know, is also called the day of the Eid. The days of Tashriq are the 11th, 12th, and 13th days of Dhul Hijjah. So he would throw these 7 pebbles, these 7 stones at Jamratul Aqaba on the day of the Eid, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. This time starts after midnight and extends until the last day of Tashriq. And it is a requisite to throw these 7 pebbles at each of the 3 stations in a specific order during the days of Tashriq, after the sun's declination westward from its zenith. And the Haji, this pilgrim, he starts with the station near the Mosque of Qaif. Then he goes on to the one next to it, and then to the one next to it. And he is allowed to, he may, delay throwing the pebbles of the first 2 days until the 3rd day. But again, if he did that, then you know he would throw 7 stones 3 times, so 21 at these stations. Do one more. The pilgrim is required to perform the farewell circumambulation, according to a saying in the Shafi'i school. And according to another saying, it is not an obligation, but is recommended to do so. Can I have maybe, is it okay, can I have maybe 5 more minutes? We can finish this section, inshallah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The author said that the one who does not fulfill these 6 matters does not invalidate his pilgrimage. They are requisite and not integrals. However, they are sinful and are required to expiate. And this is different than not performing one of the integrals that we mentioned earlier. Because pilgrimage, the Hajj, is not achieved without those integrals. Because that's the case, slaughtering a ghanam, a sheep or a goat, does not compensate for neglecting the integrals. That's clear, the difference between the two? Inshallah, we'll stop here, inshallah, and if Allah allows, Tuesday we'll finish up this section on Hajj and begin talking about the transactions, the dealings, inshallah. Did you have any questions about anything we talked about? This is called the Lucid word. Huh? What'd you say? Okay, I do that. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khairan. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.